Welcome back to part 4 of our Prehistoric Politics Series, where we explore ancient Near Eastern mythology as possible historical events rather than fictional tales. These stories, recorded in the earliest writing systems, reveal the political intrigues, family feuds, and power struggles of the gods who shaped civilization. Apotheosis, also known as deification, is the elevation of a mortal to a divine status. Autotheism, as opposed to apotheosis, is the concept in which an individual elevates themselves to the level of divine. These acts are witnessed and recorded throughout history by cultures all around the world. Some examples include mid-3rd millennium BCE Akkadian rulers and Egyptian pharaohs, and even Jesus himself. In Old Babylonian mythology, we witness this occur with Marduk. After defeating chaos along with his own brother, he consolidates all of the titles and powers of the old regimes, becoming the first supreme god. Only recently having gained the crown, Marduk's accomplishments were already more impressive than any other before him. He overthrew an evil regime, removed his unworthy brother from power, and re-established the entire culture's social norms. He laid the foundation for civilization, but it came at a cost. Constructing these new ziggurats and dams caused many workers to feel overburdened. In this episode, we delve into the events following the Lord's rise to power. While the Lord consolidates his reign, his nephew Anum wrestles with rebellion in Uruk. The uprising of the Igigi leads to the creation of mankind, but tensions among the gods continue to mount. Anum's suspicions about his uncle's actions spark a series of betrayals, culminating in a supposed assassination attempt, the theft of the Tablet of Destinies, and the emergence of Anum's serpentine qualities. Let's dive into these events and examine how Marduk's rise to power defined the concept of divinity and reshaped the ancient world's social and political structures. The Igigi Uprising. Years have passed since Marduk became Lord of the Earth and the Supreme God. During that time, he assigned other gods to rule over certain districts. Anum had received Uruk as his domain, where the laborious projects fell onto the Igigi. The Igigi were of the same race as the new ruling class, but of a lower status in Sumerian society. As the lowest competent class, the hard work naturally fell onto them. Digging canals and dikes, creating dams and ziggurats, although beneficial for their culture, began to weigh on them. These hardships led one who was popular among them, named Ilawela, to rabble-rouse. The Igigi were easily influenced by his words, and they burned their tools and fashioned weapons. Ilawela, the self-proclaimed leader of this new uprising, was known for being both intelligent and violent. He led the Igigi to the gates of heaven to confront their masters. Atop the ziggurat, Anum, his family, and his court, otherwise known as the Anunnaki, discussed potential solutions to quell the rebellion. With no conceivable solution to their problem, they summoned and sought advice from the Lord of the Earth, Marduk. He suggested sacrificing the instigator and establishing the Igigi as a higher class in society. By eliminating the instigator, it would teach a lesson to those who defied the gods. Additionally, by elevating those who rebelled to the status of divine as members of the upper class, they could be released from their burdens. It was a choice offered that they couldn't refuse. When Anum's court addressed the rebellion from the gates of heaven, all of the Igigi happily agreed. All except Ilawela. He was captured by the Anunnaki and taken as their prisoner. To fulfill their plan, the Anunnaki required a new slave class to carry the workload that the Igigi previously upheld. The Lord of the Earth, Marduk, said, "Let us create a slave. Man will be its name." He then ordered that the nearby Semitic and Ubaid migrants should be allowed to assimilate into the lower ranks of their society. The Lord Marduk argued with the court of Anum that the black-headed people should be allowed to enter Uruk and join their society. The Anunnaki disagreed, wanting to be more selective than just allowing all of them. To compromise, the Lord ordered trials to determine if incoming migrants were adequate and able to participate and assimilate into their society. Despite the migrants' shortcomings, the Lord of the Earth found purpose for all, claiming that because all of the migrants could contribute, all should be welcomed into his kingdom. The Anunnaki began to understand as the Lord proved that, despite any shortcomings, each migrant was able to contribute in some capacity to their society. The Divine Priesthood, a new social order. Ilawela, the instigator, was later paraded in front of the city. His body was pierced and his blood spilled into the dirt. The mixing of his blood with mud represented a promise to the newly created slave class, as well as to the newly established gods who rebelled. This promise was that whoever defied the gods would suffer the same fate as Ilawela. The Lord of the Earth also established a new hierarchy and balanced the powers between the Anunnaki and the Igigi. He created 300 new positions for the Igigi, allowing them representation for the first time. These 300 were assigned to their city's cult center, the Mountain of Heaven, also known as the Anu Ziggurat. Here they assisted with governing the lands of Uruk. After the suppression of the Igigi Uprising, another issue arose from this new and disorganized slave class, as they required constant direction. The Lord appointed the sage Adapa, otherwise known as Adam, to watch over the city of Eridu. Doing so proved effective, so the Lord recreated this concept in other cities. He created an order of sages, one to guide each city's ruler. They were to act much like a modern-day pope. As intermediaries between the gods and man, it was their primary responsibility to direct the leaders of man, and as time passed, this slave class became more civilized. These nearby cultures and migrants, unfamiliar with society and sedentary lifestyle, now participated and contributed to the foundations of Sumerian civilization. By the gods, this slave class in society was called man, or the black-headed people, and established or created by the Lord of the Earth. The Serpent emerges. Anum and his court, the Anunnaki, were spared from rebellion by the intervention of his uncle, the Lord. However, during this incident, Anum learned of his father's true fate, that his uncle had killed him to become the supreme god. Anum had always suspected this, but now, more than ever, he believed it was his right to rule. Upon confirming his suspicions, he began considering methods to weaken his uncle's political power. He plotted with his sons Enlil and Hadad, seeking to weaken the Lord's political influence and grip on the strongest of cities in the region. Anum chose to target the Order of Sages. The Order of Sages was responsible for providing direction, so by removing the sages, he would sever the word of the Lord from mankind. Without the word of their Lord, mankind would be vulnerable to the rise of a new supreme god. Anum, as a member of the seven who judge, was well informed about the sages and their actions. He understood Adapa's duties and ordered his fishing expedition to be sabotaged. After Adapa broke a fishing tool that belonged to the court of Anum, he was held responsible and summoned by the Anunnaki to pay for his actions. Anunnaki guards arrived in Eridu to escort Adapa to meet with Anum. Before they left, the Lord informed Adapa, "Eat not, drink not the food of death they will set before you." Adapa understood the advice and proceeded to Uruk, where he would meet with Anum. He ascended the steps of heaven and passed through its final gate. Atop the Anu Ziggurat, he saw the Temple of Anu. Amazed by the architecture, which shone pale white and unlike anything he'd seen before, Adapa entered the structure and met with Anum, the Shining One. Anum asked Adapa to join him for food and drink, but Adapa declined. Anum explained that the food offered was the food of the gods and would provide eternal life. Still, Adapa, under the impression that the food was poisoned, refused and explained that the Lord had informed him, "Eat not, drink not, the food of death will be set before me." Anum told Adapa that he could easily have him killed, but allowed him to leave and return to Eridu instead. Adapa, confused by this interaction, questioned why Anum had let him go. When Adapa arrived home in Eridu, he explained to the Lord that the food of life had been offered but was declined. The Lord, worried that Anum had learned his secret, confirmed his suspicions. The Lord, aware of his own mortality as a middle-aged man, knew the food of life was fabricated by Anum. He determined that his nephew had finally learned the truth about Anshar's assassination. The Tablet of Destinies. The Lord, despite recent setbacks with the rebellion, continued to grow his kingdom. The Tablet of Destinies, once held by his grandfather Apsu, his uncle Kingu, and his brother Anshar, was a part of the royal insignia symbolizing one's right to rule. With this as the Lord's guide, civilization began to prosper under him. The tablet, a written collection of technological advancements and social constructs, was preserved for the ruling class and safeguarded in the Chamber of Fates in Eridu. Anum, aware of the tablet's significance to godship, sought to obtain it for himself. Unable to assassinate Adapa, Anum and the Anunnaki failed to weaken the internal structure of the social hierarchy created by the Lord. Instead, they conspired to steal the Tablet of Destinies. Anum fantasized that possessing it would lead to the rise of the Anunnaki, replacing the old Anunna and ushering in a new age. To execute his plan, Anum enlisted a young woman from his court, granting her the title Inanna, the Lady of Heaven. Inanna expressed interest in retrieving the tablet, but desired glory for herself. Anum agreed and bestowed upon her the highest possible honor. Inanna traveled to Eridu, where she met with the Lord of the Earth. To the Lord's excitement, a young woman adorned in the royal insignia of Uruk approached his city. Upon her arrival, the Lord's vizier welcomed her and escorted her to the Chamber of Fates. There, the Lady of Heaven met with the Lord of the Earth and playfully challenged him to a drinking game. The Lord agreed, and as the night wore on, he became intoxicated. Taking advantage of the situation, Inanna requested to view the Tablet of Destinies, and the Lord, drunken with ego, allowed her to do so. Later that night, the Lord fell asleep, only to awaken and discover that Inanna had fled with the tablet. The giving of knowledge. Inanna, the Lady of Heaven and now beloved of Anum, had succeeded in obtaining the Tablet of Destinies. Upon her return to Uruk, she shared the knowledge with all social classes. The Shining One, Anum, had persuaded the Lady of Heaven to take the Tablet of Destinies, referred to by some as the fruit of knowledge of good and evil, and distribute its wisdom to the first class of slaves, the first man. This pivotal act marked the beginning of humanity's understanding of governance and technology, setting in motion a series of events that would forever be remembered. This concludes Part 4 of the Prehistoric Politics Series. We've explored the Igigi Rebellion, the creation of mankind, and the emergence of the Serpent through Anum's betrayal and the theft of the Tablet of Destinies. These events set the stage for future conflicts between gods and men, shaping the mythological and historical roots of ancient civilization. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Join us next time as we uncover more stories of gods and mortals, rivalry, and the foundations of human history.